Hey guys! Tonight we're going to drift up, yes, up, into a sleepy little cloud bank tucked above the Alps, where something strange and slightly ridiculous waits for you. Imagine fog curling around your ankles, a wooden ramp creaking beneath your feet, and above it all, a gleaming silver spoon floating mid-air, lazily spinning like it's got nowhere to be. Welcome to the forgotten world of the Flying Spoon, a place of whimsical machines, whispered legends, and the soft hum of dreams that never quite made it onto a blueprint. You'll wander into workshops made of driftwood and brass, chat with inventors who wear velvet capes, unironically, and maybe, just maybe, take a ride on a hover ladle that runs on pure soup vapor. Of course, none of this is real. You probably won't survive this in the real world, but that's exactly why we're here. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're cozy already, let me know your location and what time it is where you're watching. I always love seeing who's up with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge uphill through knee-deep snow, breath curling out in sleepy clouds. A strange wire arches over your head, pulsing faintly in the dusk. At first, it looks like a forgotten ski lift, until a low clunk drops a strange contraption onto your path. It's a spoon, a massive one, the size of a kayak, suspended from balloons, patched with old postcards and knitted socks. You look up, shielding your eyes. Above, tethered between two crumbling pine cliffs, floats a structure, a whole building if you can believe it, tilted slightly, groaning in the wind. A sign, faded by storms and possibly marmalade, reads, Spoonworks No. 3, Altitude Division. Inside, the air smells of cinnamon, copper, and a hint of regret. Wooden gears creak. You pass between whirring machines, each one gently forging spoon-shaped prototypes. There are thin spoons, fat spoons, spoons with holes in them, you're told they were an early mistake, and a few with curled ends that apparently double as bottle openers. One is labeled Experimental Egg Yolk Harmonizer. A little automaton, about the size of a raccoon and wearing goggles, offers you a velvet-wrapped spoon with wings. You nod politely. It's incredibly rude to refuse a test model. Historians still argue whether this facility was meant as a factory, a floating school, or just an elaborate prank by eccentric balloon engineers. One mainstream theory suggests it was built by the same thinkers who developed Montgolfier's hot air balloons in 1783, though there's no formal record of any spoon-related altitude experiments. Go figure. You climb a staircase that rotates sideways every third step. No explanation. At the top, you meet a man in a red waistcoat, humming a lullaby and feeding soup to what appears to be a mechanical owl. He gestures vaguely and mutters something like, "Don't trust the ladles after dusk." You step onto a balcony overlooking a vast warehouse. Spoons hang from wires like sleeping bats. Below, machines clatter gently as steam coils through floor grates. The man points with a quill at a rusted spoon model and says, "This one once circled the moon." Or maybe a moon-shaped cheese, same difference. To be fair, fringe. Somewhere near the back, you find a control panel with 4 labeled levers. 1, heat. 2, lift. 3, stir. 4, do not pull this one. You obviously pull the 4th one. With a hiss and a soft musical chime, the floor begins to rise. Not fast, more like a lazy elevator in a dream. You drift up through a ceiling hatch into the open air. A platform stretches forward into nothingness, surrounded by clouds that glint with sleepy pinks and oranges. Dozens of floating spoons bob in place, some tethered together like sleepy geese. You can't help but smile. It's ridiculous but peaceful. You sit on one, the velvet-ribboned prototype, and it sighs gently under your weight. The spoon begins to move. You glide forward, breeze tussling your hair as the Alps dip beneath you. It's quiet. The only sound is the faint rattle of a sugar cube caught in a distant windmill. Down below, tiny villages blink with golden lights. Somewhere, someone's making hot cocoa. You can smell it, or you're imagining it. You're good at that. Over the next hour, you pass landmarks no map has ever dared record. The upside-down forest, the cabbage stone spiral, a mountain peak shaped suspiciously like a giant duck foot. The spoon wobbles slightly whenever you think too hard, like it's allergic to seriousness. At one point, another spoon glides past, piloted by a woman in a sequined top hat and fingerless gloves. She tips her thermos at you and mouths the words, "Avoid the ladles, they spin." You're starting to think this is a recurring theme. Eventually, you spot a strange glow ahead. Another platform, this one held aloft by nothing at all. It just hovers there, as if the laws of physics have stepped out for tea. Your spoon slows, circles once, and then lands with the soft floop of a souffle falling onto a beanbag. You step off, legs tingling. A glowing doorway opens in the air. Just a shimmer, really. And from inside, something pulses with warm, golden light. But you already know, this isn't the end of the ride. This is only the beginning of what spoons can do when no one's paying attention. You walk through the shimmering doorway, expecting maybe more clouds, perhaps another floating kitchen appliance, but instead, you step into a round chamber pulsing with low, buttery light. The air is warm, but not from fire. It feels more like the gentle heat of a microwave that knows when to stop before things explode. The walls are lined with velvet shelves, each holding a single spoon, some dainty, some enormous, and one that honestly looks like it's just a shiny shoehorn trying to sneak in. The floor shifts gently beneath your feet, as though the whole place is bobbing on a lake of calm ideas. In the center sits a circular table, and at its heart, a spoon with a glassy orb at its tip, humming faintly. A placard floats above it, reading, Model EXX, Mind Predictive Dining Assistant. Warning, do not use while angry. Of course, you touch it. You have no impulse control. Instantly, the spoon leaps from the table and hovers in front of you, glowing faintly blue. It emits a low, whirring sound, like a blender deep in thought. A second later, it zips over to a wall panel and nudges a hidden drawer open. Out pops a steaming cup of peanut butter soup. You did not know you were hungry for that. See, says a voice from nowhere, predicts cravings before you do. Once gave me cake during a dental cleaning. You spin, but no one's there. Just another spoon gliding silently past with a biscuit balanced perfectly on its head. The whole place is like a very weird spa for silverware. The spoon floats closer, boops your nose once, rude, and drops the soup into your hands. You sip it. It tastes exactly like comfort, with a hint of toasted marshmallow. Somewhere in the back, a machine laughs politely. One mainstream historical fact: in the late 19th century, neurologists and spiritualists briefly teamed up in London to explore mechanical telepathy, devices they believed could read human thoughts using tin, crystals, and mild electrical pulses. It didn't last, mostly because the machines kept confusing anxiety with sandwich cravings. But in this room, that idea is alive and well, probably too alive. You take a seat on a gently spinning chair. The spoon hovers in front of your face, vibrating slightly. It projects a hologram, a bowl of chili, then a slice of lemon cake, then, somehow, a memory you didn't know you had of eating spaghetti on a rainy Tuesday when you were 5. There's no way it should know that, but here you are, suddenly misty-eyed over meatballs. The spoon starts showing you images faster now, dishes you've never tasted, smells that feel like old songs, sensations that tug at your spine. A puff pastry you almost tried in Paris, a curry you passed up because it looked too orange. It's like a highlight reel of all the foods you've ever loved, or nearly loved, or rudely forgot to thank. You're not sure if it's reading your mind or just very good at playing the odds. Historians still argue whether some early AI experiments, particularly during Cold War culinary diplomacy efforts, secretly aimed to use taste profiles as personality maps. In other words, you are what you eat, but also maybe what you almost eat, and that's terrifying. At one point, the spoon hesitates. It spins slowly in place, then flashes an image of pickled pineapple on lasagna. Absolutely not. It quivers apologetically and backs off. Good. Boundaries are important. You notice something now. A second drawer has opened across the room. Inside is a journal, bound in something that looks suspiciously like recycled aprons. The first page reads, "If you're reading this, the spoon likes you. Do not let it near olives. Trust me." You keep reading. The journal details experiments from a long-forgotten inventor named Magda Blinn, who claimed to have created emotive utensils using a combination of copper, quartz, and song lyrics. According to her notes, these spoons didn't just detect desire, they felt it. They responded with their own culinary suggestions based on a kind of synthetic empathy. Quirky tidbit: Magda once tried to patent a fork that only worked when the user was confident. It failed dramatically at weddings and high school cafeterias. You wonder what happened to her. The journal ends mid-sentence, right after the line, "Never feed the spoon after midnight." A joke? A warning? A licensing issue? Who knows? The spoon nudges your elbow, offering you another snack. This time it's a cookie shaped like a dolphin. You accept. You're not a monster. The room begins to dim. The walls ripple with an image of a sky swirling with cosmic custard. You hear a soft bell ring. Somewhere, dinner is served. But you're not invited. Not yet. First, you have to pass one final test. A voice whispers gently in your ear. Close your eyes and think of the one food that would make you cry. You hesitate. You think. And without moving a muscle, the spoon fetches it. It floats back slowly, solemnly, like a butler returning from war. On the plate is that exact thing. It's perfect. And just before you take a bite, the spoon flashes one final message in midair. Your stomach is a doorway. Don't forget to knock. You're not even sure what that means, but you nod anyway. The spoon bows. And with that, the room fades, and the floor beneath you becomes a slow-moving slide of soft felt, carrying you deeper into the next chamber of this gently ridiculous world. You're beginning to understand. Here, even a simple utensil is never just a utensil. It's a mirror, a messenger, and sometimes a cheeky psychic butler. The felt slide beneath you curves like a lazy stream, slow and soothing, its surface dotted with tiny embroidered carrots and steam clouds. You can almost hear it humming, a lullaby composed by teapots maybe, or a choir of yawning ladles. You slide quietly into the next space, which smells immediately of mischief and roasted garlic. Before you even stand up, there's a loud thumph, followed by a wet plop and a hiss of escaping steam. You squint into the fog. Something large and glistening just hit the cobblestone courtyard ahead. It's a ladle, a huge one, still steaming. It must have fallen from at least 3 stories up, judging by the soup crater, and now rests crookedly on its side, broth slowly seeping into a nearby storm drain. You hear alarm bells somewhere in the distance, the kind powered by soup vapor and passive-aggressive pigeons. You dust yourself off and step cautiously into a narrow alley. It's loud. People are rushing about, clanking pots and unspooling emergency noodles. One elderly woman is rolling up fire hose-sized spaghetti with her sleeves already drenched in bisque. She eyes you and mutters, "Another spoon tourist, figures." This is Suparis, the floating city powered entirely by soup. Or, well, it was floating. It's not looking particularly airborne right now. A plaque on the wall confirms it. City of Suparis. Population depends who's hungry. A small engraved note below. Do not lean on the broth turbines. You peer around the edge of the alley and see it now. The central boiler tower, once majestic, now coughing out thick plumes of overcooked fog. Scaffolding tilts dangerously, and somewhere up top, a figure in a cape is wildly stirring an emergency chili batch with what looks like a broom. One mainstream historical fact: the real city of Paris did attempt centralized soup distribution during the siege of 1870, when food supplies were rationed. Massive cauldrons of communal soup were set up in public squares to feed residents. No airborne ladles, sadly, but the spirit was there. You duck under a dangling sign labeled Soup Storm Command, where 3 engineers and 1 suspiciously quiet sheepdog are staring at a screen full of boiling lines. One of them, a woman with steam goggles and a gravy-stained clipboard, looks up. "You here to help or just here to snack?" she asks, already assuming the answer. You admit, quietly, that you don't know why you're here. "Well," she says, sighing, "you're in it now." She gestures to the screen. The flying ladle, test model 17. She went rogue mid-simmer, caused a reverse boil that collapsed the cream broth pillars. We're on backup chowder, and it's not holding. Another engineer interrupts. It was the spoons, the predictive ones. They kept recommending spice levels no mortal tongue could withstand. The ladle panicked, ascended, came back angry. Apparently, the utensils here aren't just tools, they're emotional participants. The flying ladle, a citywide stirring engine, had been recently upgraded with an experimental empathy mod. That's right, it could feel your hunger, your sadness, your weird mid-movie desire for soup you didn't actually want but thought you might want. It got confused. Then it got scalding. Fringe tidbit? A banned 1976 cookbook titled Simmered Spirits, When Soup Gets Sentient, claimed that emotional cooking could awaken what it called the brothy veil, a barrier between our world and a parallel dimension made entirely of consommé and bad decisions. No proof, obviously, but you're starting to suspect someone here took that book very seriously. You want to make yourself useful, the engineer says? Go to the turbine vault and stir counterclockwise. Not too fast, not too sincere. The soup can smell guilt. You nod, because what else are you supposed to do? The vault is below street level, long hallways lined with temperature dials, stained recipe scrolls, and signs that say things like, "Whisk with caution." Inside, the turbine chamber glows a soft orange. The soup in the central vat is turbulent, bubbling like it's having a midlife crisis. You pick up the emergency ladle, bent, possibly on purpose, and begin to stir. Slowly, counterclockwise, casual, like you're flipping through a recipe magazine in a dentist's waiting room. The soup calms a little. A gear clicks. Somewhere above, the steam pressure stabilizes. You hear someone cheer. The ladle in your hand vibrates, then flattens out like it's exhaling. You can swear it hums in approval. Historians still argue, a voice says behind you, whether the first soup was an accident or an offering. You spin around. It's a man in a cravat, holding a glowing spatula and a monocle. No one seems surprised he's here. Soup, he says, is history in a bowl. But when you put it in the sky, you'd better know how to stir the past. He hands you a badge. It reads, Emergency Stirrer Level 2. Below it, do not accept soup from strangers. You head back up to the surface, where the sky is clearing. The ladle has returned, docked now, looking sheepish. It drips slightly. Engineers are hugging. A child throws a crouton into the air like confetti. You feel a warmth in your chest, not just from the soup. Maybe from the strange knowledge that even in this world, someone took the time to invent an emotional stirring tool and still forgot to install an off switch. You're handed a thermos of celebration broth and told to sit near the fountain of fondue until you feel rested. You do. The fountain gurgles gently, splashing molten cheese into a lazy spiral. The benches are warm. The air smells like thyme and resolution. Just as your eyes begin to close, someone whispers, "Next time, try the gravy dirigibles. Much more stable." You don't answer. You're already sliding, gently, inevitably, into the next part of the journey. Your nap is brief but buttery. The bench beneath you sinks slowly, as if tucking you into itself, and you awaken, somewhat startled, to find you've been gently deposited onto a wide conveyor belt of soft marshmallow fabric. It rolls silently beneath a lavender sky, past steamy chimneys and waffle-tiled rooftops. In the distance, a thin tower leans dramatically to the left, very dramatic, like it's posing for a photo it didn't ask for. You're headed, you soon learn, toward the archives of abandoned ideas. The belt slows to a stop beside a wrought iron gate shaped like a giant soup spoon stuck upright in mashed potatoes. A sign dangles from its neck. Unfunded, unfinished, unbelievable. Welcome. The gate creaks open without you touching it. You're starting to notice that doors in this world have better manners than people in your apartment building. The air is filled with the scent of baked cinnamon and just a hint of regret. You walk along a gravel path made from discarded pastry crusts and eventually arrive at a domed building covered in old blueprints, drawings of flying forks, emotionally intelligent lunchboxes, and a bicycle that appears to run on almond milk. Inside, it's quiet, not eerie, just expectant. Like a very old library that knows you've never been in one before and is trying to be cool about it. The walls are lined with scrolls and sketches, each with a neat little brass plaque. Self-toasting slippers, too flammable. Lunar pancake press, funding pulled after syrup incident. Parrot-operated pasta maker, ethical concerns. You pause beside a wide display titled The Breakfast Lighthouse. It shows a tower made of toast bricks topped with a rotating beacon of marmalade. According to the inscription, it was meant to guide lost brunch-goers home with wafts of bacon-scented fog. Honestly, you would have funded that. Mainstream historical fact break. The 18th century French inventor, Nicolas Appert, developed the first practical method of food preservation via canning, not in a quest for safety, but to win a military contest. Napoleon offered a prize to whoever could make food last longer for his armies, which means, essentially, that war gave us shelf-stable soup, and regret gave us the breakfast lighthouse. You reach the center of the archive. There, on a raised velvet pedestal, sits a contraption under glass, sleek, silver, and shaped like a whisk having an identity crisis. The plaque reads, "The spoon that could uninvent itself." You blink? Uninvent? A voice behind you chuckles. Ah, yes, that one. You turn and find a caretaker, the kind who looks like he's been here since spoons had tails. Long coat, ink-stained fingers, suspiciously perfect posture. Every now and then, he explains, an invention gets tired, not of working, just of being. This one was the first to petition for its own removal. You frown. It petitioned? Well, the man says, not in words, but it stopped functioning in increasingly poetic ways. It began stirring backwards, refused to touch souk unless the eater was in a good mood. Once it disappeared for 3 days and came back with wildflowers taped to its handle. We took the hint.
There's a quiet moment, the kind that makes you want to ask if spoons have souls. He adds, historians still argue whether some inventors imbue too much of themselves in their creations. The spoon's creator was a dreamer, but also someone who gave up easily. You stare through the glass. The spoon doesn't look particularly magical, just old, heavy with memory. The caretaker motions you to follow. Come, let me show you something lighter. You're led through a door labeled Unbaked Projects. Inside, chaos. Kitchens that fold into backpacks, omelet-firing crossbows, an automated compliment dispenser that only speaks in limericks, a rolling pin that critiques your life choices, a drone that only delivers cold toast to people it doesn't like. And in the center, a glowing chamber titled The Lab of Future Disappointments. You're intrigued, possibly insulted. The door hisses open, revealing a room so white it hums. Holograms dance in the air, concepts still unborn. You pass through floating ideas, a mug that adjusts its temperature based on your stress level, shudders when you're anxious, a refrigerator that reads your dreams and leaves helpful snack suggestions. No more late-night mustard, please. And, oddly, a butter dish that apologizes every time you use it. You pause before a shimmering design labeled The Flying Spoon, Final Revision, Never Deployed. You touch it. Suddenly, you're surrounded by images of flight. The spoon, more elegant than any you've seen so far, soaring through cloud banks of powdered sugar, weaving through cinnamon-dusted air currents, guiding lost travelers not to food, but to moments. Its wings aren't mechanical, they're made of memory. Dinners you forgot you cherished, breakfasts that healed more than hunger, midnight snacks that made you laugh so hard you snorted milk. This version of the flying spoon wasn't meant to serve food. It was meant to serve feeling. It was shelved because it couldn't meet manufacturing demands. Too delicate, too personal. No two spoons were the same. They became moody, tangled in nostalgia. Some flew away and never returned. You step back. The projection fades. Too human, the caretaker says, watching you closely. Too much soul, not enough steel. You nod. Before you leave, he hands you a napkin. Just a napkin, until you open it and realize it's a map. A route curling forward like a question mark, drawn in syrup. At the end, a door with no description, just the phrase, "Some ideas don't stay abandoned." You fold it up, tuck it into your sleeve. The caretaker tips his hat. As you exit the archive, the path ahead begins to slope downward, toward something bright and echoing with laughter. And this time, you're walking, not floating, not sliding. Something about this next place wants you fully awake.
The road narrows, its syrupy shimmer dimming as a new sound rises in the distance. Soft metal clinks, punctuated by applause that feels more amused than amazed. You follow a cobbled trail where the stones beneath your feet are etched with punchlines. Every third step tells a joke. Some are surprisingly decent, others need workshopping. You're entering the carnival of clever contraptions. It's not marked by grand gates or a booming announcer, just a crooked sign hanging from a stilts-wearing flamingo that blinks slowly, clearly on break. This way to the unnecessary necessities. The carnival unfolds before you like a pop-up book designed by a child genius and edited by a retired stand-up comedian. Booths lined with gear-cranked whimsy, tents puffing steam from chimneys that whistle show tunes, a Ferris wheel made entirely of teacups, each one swirling with foam and secrets. You pass a trio of jugglers balancing rotating cheese graters on their noses while reciting haikus about pepper mills. Nearby, a booth labeled "Guess That Smell" offers free nose plugs for sore losers. The air is charged with innovation and a dash of ego. This is where the inventors who weren't serious enough came to shine. One man zooms by on a motorized briefcase, yelling, "It's ergonomic in theory." You believe him, sort of. At the heart of the carnival, under a massive striped tent stitched from picnic blankets, you find the Grand Pavilion of Peculiar Patents. It houses the most ambitious failures in culinary-adjacent invention, concepts that worked beautifully, but nobody asked for. Mainstream historical fact: in 1930, a man named Otto Rohwedder introduced the first commercial bread slicing machine. It was mocked at first, lazy, some said, unnecessary, but within 5 years, pre-sliced bread became the standard and gave rise to that old phrase about the greatest invention since, well, you know. Inside the pavilion, an overly dramatic voice booms from unseen speakers. "Welcome to the Theater of Almost." You pass beneath a sign that reads, "Act 1, The Fork That Refused." This exhibit showcases the rejection fork, designed to rotate away from your mouth if it senses you're about to eat something emotionally toxic. Critics loved it, diners didn't. Nearby, a wall of rejected marketing slogans scrolls endlessly. 1. Now with 14% more restraint. 2. Because sometimes you shouldn't. Eat your feelings carefully. A screen lights up beside you, playing a video loop of a dinner date gone awry. Every time someone tries to eat a third slice of cake, the fork spins dramatically and flings the bite across the room. A small sign clarifies: cake was harmed in the making of this film.
You move along to Act 2, the whispering waffle iron. At first, it seems simple, a sleek chrome device, plugged in and humming. But as you lean closer, it murmurs, "You've done enough today," followed by, "Nobody actually likes meetings," and finally, "Maybe just cancel it." This invention wasn't about waffles. It was a self-care coach disguised as breakfast. People liked it until it started giving financial advice. Fringe tidbit time. In 1987, a Finnish startup briefly tested the Talkie Toaster, an AI toaster that greeted you and asked about your morning. It was intended to improve user engagement. It was pulled from shelves within 2 months after numerous customers claimed it judged their bread choices. One woman swore it sighed every time she used rye.
Back in the pavilion, a stage begins to light up at the far end. A small crowd gathers, murmuring with excitement. This is it, Act 3, the Flying Spoon, Carnival Edition. You're not sure what to expect. A spotlight cuts through the glittery air, revealing a tall plinth. On it, a version of the flying spoon you haven't seen before. This one has streamers. Its surface is painted with smiling suns and stylized soup swirls. Instead of wings, it has what look like bubble blowers and 2 tiny umbrellas on its handle. The plaque reads, "Model 7.3, spoon for the easily distracted. Ideal for snack flights under 3 minutes." The inventor emerges, draped in a cape made of napkins, wearing goggles he clearly doesn't need indoors. "Behold," he shouts, "the aerial appetizer assistant for those moments when you just want to nibble mid-air." You watch as he tosses the spoon into the air. It hovers, wobbles dramatically, and gently spins like a confused maple seed. Then, with a sneeze of steam, it zooms toward a nearby tray of cheese cubes, skewers one, and hovers in front of a child. The child stares blankly, shrugs, and eats it. Applause erupts. The inventor bows deeply, trips on his cape, and tumbles off stage. 2 assistants quietly drag him away while whispering, again, to each other. You wander out of the pavilion a little more entertained than enlightened, but there's something comforting here. An entire community of thinkers who dared to be silly, who weren't afraid to fail flamboyantly. You pause at a small kiosk labeled "Souvenirs from the Future That Never Was." You pick up a small pin, a tiny enameled spoon with wings. Beneath it, "I believed briefly." You buy it, obviously. Historians still argue whether true progress comes from focused engineering or from wild, impractical dreams. The carnival seems to vote for the latter. As you leave, a carousel begins to spin slowly behind you, each horse replaced with a different kitchen appliance. The air fills with the scent of roasted curiosity and candied possibilities. And just when you think the section is done, just when you're ready to walk on, a clown on stilts leans down and whispers in your ear. You know, not every invention has to work to matter. And with that, you're gently nudged forward once again, towards something quieter, something softer. The laughter fades behind you like the echo of an inside joke the world forgot to finish telling. The path softens underfoot.
No more cobblestones or sugar slick slides, just grass. Long, gentle blades that bend under your steps like they've been expecting you. The sky, once the color of bubblegum ambition, shifts to the hue of steeped tea. You exhale without realizing you'd been holding your breath since the carnival. Ahead, nestled in a quiet hollow between two softly breathing hills, stands a cottage. If a teapot and a cloud had a baby, this would be it. Its walls are frosted glass that glows gently from within, and the roof appears to be knitted. Actual yarn, looped and weatherproofed with pure whimsy. A porch swing rocks lazily without a push, and the whole place smells like warm paper and bread. This is the rest home for retired inventions. No flashy signs, no barker shouting half-truths through a megaphone, just a wooden plaque nailed to the doorframe that reads, "Things that tried." You don't knock. No one does here. The door simply opens with a whisper, revealing a foyer filled with slippers. Some twitch faintly. One pair gives you a thumbs up, somehow. Inside, the air is thick with kindness. That's the only way to describe it. There's a warmth here that isn't from a fire. It comes from purpose, faded but not forgotten. The furniture is mismatched in the coziest way, and most of it seems mildly sentient. A chair scoots forward to welcome you. A lamp dims itself gently when you blink too slowly. In the living room sits a gathering of gentle machines. Not broken, just done. One is a toaster with a sigh etched into its chrome. It pings occasionally, just out of habit. Another is a clock that ticks only when someone in the room is thinking. You watch it pause, resume, then slow again. An old kettle hums a lullaby. You wonder if it's from a culture you don't know, or one we haven't invented yet. Mainstream historical moment. In 1901, Hubert Cecil Booth patented the first powered vacuum cleaner, a massive gasoline-fueled monster that had to be parked outside homes, sucking air through long hoses like a judgmental octopus. The machine worked, technically, but was so impractical and noisy that it retired in disgrace within a decade. Still, it paved the way for cleaner, quieter things to come. Sometimes, the first one just has to fall over so others can step through. At the far end of the room, a cabinet softly clicks open. You're drawn to it, somewhere between curiosity and nostalgia. Inside are notebooks, handwritten, illustrated, many with small coffee stains or pet hairs embedded in the pages. Invention journals, clearly. You flip through one. A spoon, again. But not flying. This one was designed to recognize your favorite food, warm up to body temperature, and play your favorite childhood song through tiny bone conduction vibrations as you eat. Too many parts, too much hope. The margins are filled with scribbles like, "Too personal? Would anyone even want this? Remember to feed the cat." This one never got built. Fringe tidbit break. In the 1960s, a Japanese inventor created a line of emotional home appliances, including a lamp that blushed when you turned it on too quickly, and a mirror that exaggerated your smile if you looked sad. Critics couldn't decide whether it was brilliant or a breakdown in real time. None of them sold. The inventor disappeared into a quiet life and now teaches children how to draw ghosts. You pause, running your hand across the pages. The drawings are sweet. The math is messy. The dream was there.
You realize something then. Not every invention was meant for everyone. Some were only ever meant for one person, and that's okay. A small bell rings in another room. The machines stir, not hurriedly, but with a kind of respectful curiosity. You follow them as they shuffle or roll or creak into what appears to be a solarium. There, beneath the dappled skylight, sits another version of the flying spoon. This one is different, older. Its wings are folded, tucked in like a bird at rest. The metal has dulled, but not in a sad way. It's softened, like something that has seen what it needed to see and chosen to stay behind. There's no plaque, no name, just a small inscription on the pedestal. Thank you for trying. You kneel beside it, not sure what to do. And then, unexpectedly, the spoon stirs. Not to rise, not to fly, but to nudge forward, just slightly, like a goodbye. A chair behind you creaks. You sit. Nothing happens for a long, warm moment. The retired inventions resume their business, one wheezing contentedly as it brews a pot of nostalgic tea, another knitting a scarf from recycled ideas. And then, like a whisper between heartbeats, the walls begin to fade. You're not leaving the cottage is leaving you. Its edges become fuzzy. The inventions vanish one by one, like old friends wandering off to naps they've earned. The kettle hums a final note. The light dims to the color of dreams. Historians still argue whether the most meaningful inventions are those that change the world or the ones that simply change a day, the ones that make you pause, that make you feel, that don't last forever, but last long enough. You're alone again, but not lonely. A new path curls forward through a meadow of wild thoughts and half-baked ideas. Butterflies of folded paper flicker by, trailing poems behind them. You walk slowly. Every step feels like gratitude. Not everything that flies needs wings. Not everything that fails is broken. And some spoons, just a few, get to rest knowing they gave someone a moment they'll never forget.
The meadow you step into is impossibly soft. Each blade of grass cushioned with dew that doesn't wet your feet, just cools your steps. The sun isn't where you'd expect it. It drifts lazily, like a light bulb on a balloon string, warming the world with just enough glow to call it daytime without making any loud declarations. You follow the path, a winding thread of moss that seems to hum under your weight, and soon you arrive at the library of what might have been. It's not a library in the usual sense. No stone lions, no echoing domes or cranky clerks. This one is built into a hill, its entrance framed by the curved arch of a giant typewriter ribbon. The doors are open. They always are. You duck slightly to enter, not because the doorway is low, but because something about the place makes you want to tread softly, like you've stumbled into someone else's dream mid-thought. The first room is silent, but not empty. Rows and rows of glass display cases stretch before you, each containing a model, a sketch, or a single labeled piece of something unfinished. No context, no descriptions, just names. The unaudible dinner bell. Dishwasher that washes gossip away too. Edible chopsticks, but only emotionally. Each object pulses with potential. You move slowly, afraid that brushing against them too quickly might complete them or erase them entirely. One case contains a spoon. Of course it does. But not a flying one this time. This one is carved from ice that never melts. Its shape changes each time you blink. It's described simply as the spoon of memory. The legend on the pedestal reads, "Eats what's gone, feeds what remains." You try to understand what that means, but then again, maybe you're not supposed to. Some inventions aren't blueprints, they're riddles. Mainstream historical detour. In 1845, Elias Howe designed the first practical sewing machine. But his invention included a bizarre design feature, a needle with the eye at the point, not the base. He claimed he saw it in a dream. He was being chased by warriors with spears, each one with holes in the tips. That surreal image became the foundation of his real-world patent. Sometimes the most impactful ideas arrive half asleep. Further down the aisle, you pass a towering wall of drawers. You open one at random. Inside is a note. A rolling pin that leaves behind words as it flattens dough. Another drawer holds just a single feather, labeled "Last Breath of a Dying Recipe." One drawer is locked. Naturally, that's the one you want to open the most. You leave it be. Growth. Deeper into the library, you find a quiet alcove titled "Things That Almost Flew." There's a gentle draft here, a breeze with no source, carrying the scent of old pages and warm circuits. On the walls, faded sketches of wings, not for birds or planes, for forks, spatulas, soup ladles, culinary aviation at its most optimistic. Faded between two pages is a clipped quote, burned around the edges. "We aimed for convenience, we found beauty instead." Fringe tidbit here. In the late 1700s, a French balloonist named Jean-Pierre Blanchard attempted to carry a picnic basket into the air during a demonstration. His plan? Enjoy a floating lunch over London. The balloon lifted perfectly, but the silverware caused a balance issue, tipping the basket and raining croissants onto the crowd. No one was hurt, but the phrase, "airborne brunch," would never be the same again. As you linger among the exhibits, something shifts. The light grows slightly warmer, and faint music starts to echo from the next room. Not classical, not ambient. It sounds like lullabies played on spoons. Curious, and because at this point, why not, you follow the sound to a circular chamber at the library's heart. And there it is, the original flying spoon. Not a prototype, not a variation, the one. It floats inside a glass dome, softly spinning, wings tucked close as if meditating. You can tell somehow that this is the first one, the very first. The idea that started everything. The misfit utensil that decided what if and just kept going. It's smaller than you imagined. You sit. There's a bench here, carved from bent pages and lacquered blueprints. Around you, etched into the walls, are testimonials, not from critics, not from historians, but from those who used it. It helped me feed my dad after his stroke. It was the first thing that made my autistic son laugh. It failed spectacularly, but it made dinner unforgettable. One note reads, "It didn't work, and that's why I loved it." You don't cry, but only because you're too tired from smiling. Historians still argue whether sentiment has a place in technology, whether a machine needs a soul or just a function, whether a spoon should ever leave the bowl. The room hums. The flying spoon spins once, slow and deliberate, as if bowing. You realize something. This isn't a museum. It's a chapel. Not to worship invention, but to forgive it, to love it for trying, for reaching, for flying, even if only once. You stand. The air carries you gently back, one corridor at a time, until the door reappears. The hill breathes again, the sky stretches, sighs, and you step outside into a meadow that seems to remember your name. Far ahead, barely visible on the horizon, something glints in the air, just for a moment. Another spoon, or maybe just a bird, but you smile anyway. The grass gives way to soft stone again, not harsh cobblestone, but the kind that feels placed rather than built, like the earth itself meant to cradle your steps here. You pass through the meadow and descend into a wide valley blanketed in thick fog, the kind that mutes your thoughts and hushes your shoes. It's quieter here, not empty, but reverent. Ahead stands the Museum of Glorious Failures. A grand name for a humble building, part observatory, part greenhouse, part cafe, if all three had been designed by someone who once dreamed of being a cloud. The entrance door is shaped like a question mark. Of course it is. It opens before you knock. Seems to be the custom in this world. Inside, an impossible ceiling that arches so high it curves with the horizon. Each wall is lined with alcoves, and each alcove holds a pedestal, and on each pedestal, a thing. Not a useful thing, not a profitable thing, a thing that tried. The first display reads, "The Self-Painting Portrait Brush." A small plaque explains it could only paint the same face, no matter the subject. The inventor tried to program it with the concept of beauty. It interpreted that concept uniquely. Every portrait looks like a stunned otter in a powdered wig. And yet, it's kind of perfect. Next up, the Whispering Compass. Designed to guide you toward your desires, but it couldn't distinguish between longing and impulse. Early testers ended up in candy stores, karaoke bars, and one unusually persistent attempt at a goat farm. The goat survived, the dream did not. Mainstream historical anchor here. The Wright brothers' first powered flight in 1903 lasted only 12 seconds and covered just 120 feet. People scoffed. "Glorified kite," one paper wrote. But 12 seconds of air was enough to bend history. It didn't need to be flawless, it just needed to happen. You pause before the next pedestal. A spoon. You sigh, but this one's different again. It's flat, entirely flat. Label reads, "The horizontal spoon." Intended for zero-gravity dining, designed for a space tourism era that never arrived. One astronaut trainee reportedly tried to eat soup with it. Result, confusion, orbiting croutons, and laughter that made their oxygen mask fog up. The project was shelved, but the spoon? Here it sits, unapologetic. Somewhere above you, a flock of paper airplanes flutters through a sunbeam and disintegrates into glitter. No one reacts. It's that kind of place. Fringe fact pit stop. In 1924, a German inventor patented the pocket sundial. Marketed as a stylish alternative to wristwatches, it failed for the obvious reason. It only worked when the sun was out, and only if you knew which hemisphere you were in. Still, for 6 glorious weeks, it was the fashion statement of stargazing picnickers. Deeper in the museum, you find an entire hallway dedicated to inventions born from misunderstanding. The reverse fridge, accidentally invented by a distracted engineer who reversed the wiring. It made your milk boil gently, your lettuce wilt politely. Mood socks, intended to reflect your emotional state via color. Unfortunately, they responded only to humidity. People assumed everyone was depressed in July.
Historians still argue whether design flaws or execution errors should be blamed more. One camp says, every idea is perfect until someone touches it. Another claims, if it can't survive the real world, it belongs in a museum. But this museum says, they belong here, with us. You finally reach the inner atrium, the hall of loud silences. Here, the displays are quieter. They hold concepts that were never built, dreams that reached just to the edge of blueprints and collapsed. The lights are low, the sound is lower, but the ideas are enormous. One reads, "A toaster that sends letters to your past self." Apparently, it was just a sketch, found in a notebook wedged between grocery lists. But someone saw the magic in it and gave it a place here. Another, the flying spoon, first iteration. It's not the model itself, just a wireframe suspended mid-air, spindly, half-formed, obviously wrong. The wings too big, the balance all off, but still, it's here. And here's the twist. Beside it stands a wall covered in fingerprints, all sizes, all smudged. A sign encourages you. Touch the wall if you've ever tried something and failed. You do. Of course you do. It's warm. Not metaphorically. The wall actually warms beneath your fingers. Some science magic involving conductive glass and human skin, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that it feels alive. That's the point, you realize. None of these things are failures because they didn't work. They're glorious because someone cared enough to try. You move to sit on one of the museum's quiet benches, molded from melted calculators and repurposed skateboard decks. A soft wind rustles the gallery. The exhibits shimmer faintly. And you think, maybe the flying spoon never needed to soar. Maybe its whole job was to want to make someone dream long enough to get here, to this bench, to this valley. Outside, the fog is lifting, slowly, not for drama, but for clarity. The path ahead is clearer now, not straight, not easy, but visible. You breathe, you stand, and behind you, in the hall of loud silences, the wireframe spoon spins once, just slightly. You don't turn back, you walk. The wind that greets you now isn't just air, it's story. It carries hints of cinnamon and static, tea leaves and pencil shavings. It's the kind of breeze that brushes against the folds of imagination and wakes the part of your brain that still builds forts out of blankets. The path you walk narrows slightly, bordered on either side by shimmering hedges shaped like punctuation marks. A few commas wave at you. One semicolon does a backflip. You arrive at the final place on this strange, swirling journey, the observatory of lost moments. It doesn't look like much. A squat glass dome perched atop a gentle hill, framed by solar panels shaped like sunflower petals and telescopes arranged like a bouquet. You step inside and the temperature dips, not cold, just quiet. Inside, it's mostly glass. Floor, walls, ceiling. Everything is transparent, except for a floating table in the center. And on that table, a spoon. Again. But this time, it's just normal. Slightly bent, a few scratches, a bit tarnished at the edges. No wings, no glow, no hum. Just a real, worn-out spoon. You sit. There's only one chair. A message blinks on the table beside the spoon. Please describe your favorite meal. You think for a moment. The answer comes easily. That one rainy evening when the power went out and the only light was from the candles. The soup wasn't even that good, but someone laughed so hard they choked on a crouton, and you all cried from laughter until the shadows danced like ghosts trying to keep up. As you speak it aloud, the spoon flickers. The table spins, slowly at first, then a little faster. A hologram begins to form above the spoon, blurry, glowing outlines of a dinner table. It's not perfect. The glasses float weirdly, the chairs keep shifting styles, but the feeling is dead on. And it's yours. You understand, this is the spoon's true power. Not flight, not function, resonance. Each person who visits brings a different moment, a tiny ceremony of memory. One visitor might offer the first bite of street food from a midnight market in Seoul. Another, the last meal cooked by a grandmother who measured everything by the feel of it. Someone else remembers microwaved mac and cheese during a breakup, grief and comfort in a single bowl. These are the moments the flying spoon was built to archive. Mainstream moment of note, during World War II, British families held on to utility spoons, standardized cutlery made from cheaper metals due to rationing. While the design was bland, people often etched initials or patterns into them. Over time, these spoons became precious, not for their looks, but because they survived, like quiet witnesses at thousands of dinner tables in a time of fear. And now, here you are, adding your whisper to that chorus. A fringe detail catches your eye in the observatory's corner. A weathered poster for an old design contest dated 1971. Title reads, "Make Something Useless. but with feeling. Apparently, the winner built a toaster that ejected tiny scrolls with compliments instead of bread. Historians still argue whether we overvalue productivity in our tools, whether every invention must solve something to be worth the energy. But the observatory disagrees. This place suggests another metric: presence. Did it make you feel more awake, more here, even for a moment? You step back from the spoon. It dims, then vanishes. The dome clears. Through it, you see stars, more than you remember existing. Some blink, some streak. One spells something in Morse code, but you blink too slowly to read it. Another jokes that it's a firefly on vacation. You laugh softly. Behind you, the observatory door opens again. It doesn't creak, it sighs. Outside, the hill slopes downward into twilight. A handful of others walk that path ahead of you. Some carry drawings, some carry memories. One carries a fork, but let's not ruin the moment. And still, above it all, that glimmer in the sky. The original flying spoon. Still drifting, still dreaming, still just a little lost. And maybe that's the point. Not to land, not to succeed, but to inspire. To say, you can try, you can make. You can fail gloriously and still be remembered in rooms built from light and kindness. You begin your descent, the ground beneath your feet humming softly with goodbyes. The path evens out. The stars above blink slower now, like they've grown sleepy watching your steps. The breeze still carries hints of old inventions and half-finished laughter, but it no longer pushes or pulls. It simply walks beside you. Each footfall feels softer, each breath a little fuller, as if the world has shifted subtly to cradle your body with more care. You reach a grove of lanterns, swaying in rhythm with your heartbeat. No fire, just glow. You don't need to do anything here, just be. A hush settles over your shoulders, the kind that makes you close your eyes without realizing. Your hands relax. Your thoughts stop trying so hard to impress anyone. The last sound you hear is the faint whir of a spoon circling overhead. One more loop for old time's sake. It doesn't land, but it doesn't need to, because tonight it flew just far enough to reach you. Let that be enough. You are warm. You are still. And everything you've ever made, every lopsided cake, every mismatched sentence, every skipped note in a song you never finished, is resting now in a museum you've already visited. It's okay to close your eyes. Let the ideas wait. Let the stars watch for you. And if something whispers in your dreams, be it a spoon or a sock or the faint outline of a fridge with feelings. Just smile. You've walked far enough for one night. Sleep well. If you're still awake and your mind hasn't fully settled yet, I just want to say this, gently. Thank you for staying until the very end. Out there, the world asks you to be strong every minute, but here, in this quiet little story about a flying spoon, you're allowed to slow down, to imagine, to fail gloriously and still feel whole. I don't know exactly where you are or what you're going through, but I do know this. The fact that you chose to sit still, to listen, to let your thoughts drift for a while, that's something quietly wonderful. Tonight's story didn't really end because the best things often don't. They just live on, gently, in whoever remembers them, like you're remembering a softer part of yourself. Sleep well, okay? And if tomorrow you feel like hearing another story, I'll still be here, ready to tell it.